Okay, good evening, everybody. I have 5 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. Sean Callan is absent. Julie Chetney.
Present.
Tom Chiappa.
Here.
Dave Crisafulli.
Here.
Jim McKenzie's here. Kristen Norfleet is not. And Sean Onbach.
Here.
Thank you. If we can stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can I ask everybody stand for a moment of silence for Lou Crisafulli. Mr. Crisafulli was a longtime teacher and coach in the district who recently passed away. Thank you. Okay, so first order of business is floor to the public. There are a number of people signed up. So before we call the first person, this Oswego City School District's Board of Education welcomes public comment at this portion of the meeting using the following guidelines. Each speaker who is signed up is permitted 3 minutes for their comments. Speakers may not yield remaining time to others. Comments must be directed to the board president. The board will listen to comments and input, but will not necessarily debate or discuss items. Operational matters will be directed to school administration for handling. The board is not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session. The board will limit repetitive comments to give time to others wishing to speak, as well as to maintain meeting efficiency. The board president has the authority to end a speaker's comments or close public comment as appropriate. Any additional written correspondence or letters may be directed to the board clerk for distribution to the board. The board expects decorum at all times, and all speakers should state their name and full address. So first on the list is Sandy Miller.
Maybe you know this, maybe you don't. Is it on? 2 weeks ago, Governor Hochul directed the Commissioner of Homeland Security and Emergency Services to develop a media tool guide for grades K through 12 to, quote, teach teachers and students to spot conspiracy theories, misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, unquote. I see this as a blatant attempt to use the education system to fundamentally transform the nation, so you know where I'm coming from, by training children to distrust their parents and condition them to trust the state as the ultimate purveyor of truth. So the schools will be receiving this guide next year, early next year. The commissioner said, quote, any school that wants to jump in with both feet and partner with us, we're excited to roll up our sleeves and get to work, unquote. Neither the governor or the commissioner has the authority to require schools to implement this. But as board members and watchmen, you have the authority and the responsibility to direct the administrators to throw this guide in the trash. The top 3 signs of an effective board member are clear vision for their district, setting goals, and focus on student achievement. I heard these expressed at the Meet the Candidates night, so I expect you to work on this. Since New York State is ranked only 36 out of 50 states that are at or above basic requirement achievement levels, I will ask you in the future how you have addressed this. And lastly, I have looked up over 30 school districts far and wide, maybe even more, to see what time their board meeting starts. Not one of them is 5 o'clock. And at Meet the Candidates meeting, you were all concerned with the public's perception of you. The people I've talked to, young parents especially, their perception is they don't want us there. So, here we go.
Thank you. Next is Michael, sorry, that wasn't supposed to be loud. Michael Duhar? Dehar, apologies. Thank you.
798 Middle Road. Thank you for your time. On June 12th of this year, the New York Education Department released the following document entitled, Creating a Safe, Supportive, and Affirmative School Environment for Transgender and Expansive Students, Legal Update, and Best Practices. I'm here to speak to this document. This guidance document, created for administrators, is much more than an anti-bullying policy. It clearly portrays and promotes a fluid gender ideology at the expense of parental rights, and more concerning, at the real needs of children. This guidance document makes the following very clear to those implementing its policy, and these things are the very things that I think make it very dangerous. The first item is parental awareness of their children's assumed gender identity at school is optional. Parents don't need to know this, apparently, according to this document. The policy is not all-inclusive when it comes to safety. This policy, as written, can place non-TGE students' privacy and safety in jeopardy. We've seen this in the nation already. Third, any perspective that does not embrace or affirm that transgendering is the only way forward or cure for a confused or dysphoric child is to be dismissed. That's pretty narrow. Equally concerning is the fact this document puts no lower limit of age or grade involvement on its instruction. This program, due to its early engagement, gets out in front of parents. It brings more confusion, not less, to young minds, and it is burdening young children with things in advance of their years. Last year in California, a mom who discovered her middle school daughter was being socially transitioned behind her back recently won in court and settled with the Spreckle Union School District for $100,000. What started the whole process was her daughter's complaint to a school counselor that she was depressed and was under some stress. Somehow that translated into putting her into this program. Today one reads about young people still struggling with dysphoric issues even after medical transitions. Only now, these young adults are often locked into changes that are not reversible. They feel used and now know that transitioning is not a cure at all. This realization is a crushing blow. Early gender engagement, apart from parental involvement, needs to end. Keeping secrets destroy trust. Children need their parents more than ever these days. The school needs parents also. In some states, parents have been sued just for asking for information on gender-based curriculums.
Okay, sir.
In the absence
Sir,
of
that's been-
complete transparency,
That's been 3 minutes. If you have a short amount, I can let you go, but. that's
okay,
been 3
I'll just
minutes.
close.
Thank you.
Thank you. In our community, there are many parents who believe that it is a God-given right to manage the affairs of their children. This view has been accepted as a key cornerstone of society in many cultures and nations for thousands of years. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Carbone?
I don't have children in the public school system, but I care deeply about the children of this generation and what they are being exposed to. I would like to share a story of two detransitioned girls and their final thoughts on their experience of this process. Here's the first story, and quoting the girl. It's important to remember that only telling someone yes and telling someone yes, you're valid, and only affirming them and only saying yes is not an act of love. That's not what love is. Love is not giving in to every whim and only saying yes. Love is putting up those boundaries and saying no and having to keep someone safe, even when they might be upset at you for it. Because only saying yes and only going down one path and only affirming isn't love, it's enabling. And I feel that is just something parents need to understand with this. This detransitioning individual is basically saying that love without truth or honesty is hurtful in the long run, and it's not true love. Here's a second testimonial. It's entitled, 4 Things I Wish I Knew Before Transitioning to Male. 1, that injecting myself with cross-sex hormones was actually harmful and damaging my perfectly healthy body. 2, that changing my identity and changing my body wasn't actually going to heal the pain I had within me. It was just an escape that actually created more trauma for me. 3, that it was okay to be a tomboy and not fit into society's beauty standards as to what a woman was supposed to be like. And 4, that I was perfect the way I was and I didn't need to change. These painful thoughts were bravely shared by these young ladies that others might benefit. Unfortunately, individuals like these are now receiving harsh treatments from those who once affirmed them because they are now living with the results of their decision and admit it was a terrible mistake. Are messages and other firsthand testimonies like these allowed to be shared in schools, or are they considered hate speech because this counters the affirmative-only approach? These children need help, and their parents must be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Stephanie Thorpe.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Thorpe from 94 County Route 31 in Oswego. I've been an adult in the Oswego City School District for over 50 years, so I've seen a lot of changes, as you have too. I'd like to continue the address about the transgender issue and the responsibility that's put on you as guidelines come out. The following is the firsthand account of an individual who came to the painful realization that she made a life-altering mistake by believing that transitioning was the cure for her personal struggles. For her, there is no returning to her former self. Here's her story. I identified myself as a transgender for years, and when I started to feel confused and ashamed about my developing body, I asked everyone in my life to call me by a new name and use male pronouns to refer to me. Then I went through a social transition from female to male. Everyone in my life immediately affirmed my new identity. The constant affirmation, both active and passive, solidified me in my transgender identity. No one meant to lock me into an identity that would later leave me broken or ashamed and more confused than before. They were really all just being nice. But the social transition eventually wasn't enough, and I soon felt I needed to take testosterone. And when that wasn't enough, I had a double mastectomy. And when that still wasn't enough, I had a total hysterectomy, including the removal of my uterus, cervix, and fallopian tubes, and both ovaries. There is no point of contentment during a gender transition. We get fleeting moments of euphoria, but ultimately one step leads straight to the next, and I thought that in the end, I could really become a man. But all I became was a mutilated and abused version of my old self. Social transitioning is a big deal, and we're lying when we say any of this is reversible. And here are a few takeaways from her testimony. First, I honor the woman to have the courage to seek to tell the truth about the high cost of transitioning. She, unlike so many others that have traveled the same path, has chosen not to take her life, but to give her life to help to warn others. Second, what was referred to as just being nice is evidence that in many aspects our moral compass has lost its true north. Being nice is viewed as being virtuous, when in fact it can be injurious and or deadly, as reflected in this testimony. Third, science is very clear about the development of the human brain. Though by the age of 14 a human's brain has reached its full size, the brain's circuitry is not fully complete until around age 25.
Ma'am, 3 minutes is up if you have a conclusion.
I do. Okay, thank you. On this fact alone, educators, school board members, parents, and the community at large have a weighty responsibility of helping children navigate through falsehoods and confusion based on their internal feelings and myopic perceptions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Excuse me. Bob Kester?
Hello, I'm Bob Kester from County 89, Oswego. Firstly, I want to recognize the difficult work and challenges that this board undertakes, and to thank each of you for your volunteer service to our community, sincerely. I echo the sentiments and concerns of the three who spoke before me. We're not here to come against the school board, the administration, the teachers. We're not here for a lack of compassion towards kids who are confused and struggling with non-traditional gender issues. We are here out of concern for kids and parents and community, and out of respect for human life as designed. In particular, we're here to raise awareness to a new state guideline that's marketed as protecting, nurturing, affirming, tolerant, loving, but at best is only attempting to be loving, and at the cost of exacerbating the confusion in our children and our culture, and also at the cost of undermining vital trust relationships between parent and child and between community and school. Please consider the following. Why is there such a focus in school on sexual identity, particularly in such early years? 2, if we are to esteem more than two genders, and kids can identify as anything they feel and choose at any given time, then where's the limit? Where does the line get drawn? 3, did you know that the subject NICED guidance document lists definitions of 26 different gender-related terms? You know, the more we enable, the crazier this gets, and the more impossible to manage, and the more collateral damage. How far is too far? Did Loudoun County, Virginia, understand policy risks when a female student was raped in the school girls' bathroom? 4, are we going to allow school books and resource material to expose kids as young as kindergarten to sexuality with no bounds? 5, are we to change a three-way relationship, parent, child, teacher, to a two-way, taking parents out of the picture? Lastly, step back and consider if this modern cultural trend is radical and insane. Did we as a civilization just finally, after 1,000 years, get enlightened to how things really should be? Such that on issues pertaining to sexuality, kids should be in the driver's seat, and public schools should take the lead over parents? Yes, these are difficult times and issues.
Sir, 3 minutes is up. So
Here's my wrap up.
Thank you.
Indeed, it's a fine line between sympathy versus enabling, and between affirming and misguiding. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have Rebecca Prosekic.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Prosekic. My address is 150 Ingalls Road. I'm here as a parent of a child at Minetto Elementary School. So we have questions and concerns regarding the new grading system that's been implemented. There's some confusion, I think, and inconsistency in regards to the grading standards, the implementation, in the individual schools, consistency among the schools, specifically in regards to 3s, 4s. When you have a child who answers all the questions correctly on an assignment or a test, and despite getting 100%, which would have been the traditional grade, he gets a 3. And it's hard to explain to, even though they're 6th graders, 5th graders, to them it's a big deal that I got all of these questions right, but I still got a 3, which in their minds is the equivalent of a 75. And when asking a teacher, how does a child earn a 4 in any classes, their response is they need to go above and beyond. Well, on a multiple choice exam, there is no way to go above and beyond. You get a 3. When the answer is, well, to get that 4, instead of showing one way to solve a math problem, they need to show at least 2. Instead of listing the 3 examples that we've asked for, they need to do at least 6. That's very difficult for parents to understand, let alone to explain to children. And when a teacher tells you it's virtually impossible to earn a 4, that's a problem, not only for a parent, but also as a child, especially when there's inconsistencies, when you hear other parents who, yeah, my child got 4s in everything. When you have a child who normally gets, 3.7s, 95%, now he gets 3 across the boards. And even a teacher, when they convene together as a group, 3 classrooms, the teacher initially gives the child a 4 on the assessment, but after meeting, the teacher has reduced all of those grades to 3, even though that child has answered all of those math problems correctly. So as a concerned parent, not just myself, but on behalf of other parents, we're hoping for some guidance, some explanation, not just as parents, but for the teachers and for the students, so they understand what's going on, what's expected of them, and what they need to do in order to see the results that they've been seeing all along in elementary school. So, thank you.
Thank you. Last, Bill Braun.
Hi, I'm Bill Braun of Oswego. I have a 8th grade son in middle school, and I live on 20 O'Brien Glenway. In the 2020 presidential election, Joe Biden won Onondaga County over Donald Trump with 56% of the vote. But Trump won Oswego County over Biden with 54% of the vote. Trump's current agenda for the 2024 election states that he would cut federal funding and potentially open civil rights investigations into schools that teach critical race theory or discuss transgender issues with our children. I bring this up because it seems very possible that a majority of Oswego County voters and perhaps Oswego City School District parents agree with Trump's educational agenda. The views of parents should matter on issues that are not determined by law or clear educational principles. At a recent parent-teacher conference, my wife asked our 8th grade son's teachers if any of them asked the students what preferred pronouns they would like to be called by. One teacher said yes, while the others said no. I would guess that few, if any, other parents knew this was asked of the students in the classroom. Some parents or board members would favor it or not mind, while others would be quite upset. I'm not personally upset with the teacher, but I want to speak to it as a policy. I've read very carefully the 2023 Legal Update and Best Practices document from the State Education Department that these other speakers referred to. The document gives extensive guidance on treating all students, including transgender and gender-expansive students, with respect and care. No one should disagree with that, and the district needs to follow all federal and state laws related to TGE students. But in that document, no law is cited by which school personnel are required to ask students which pronoun they would like to be referred to with. Does asking a classroom of students if they want to use a different pronoun potentially make some actively religious students feel offended or uncomfortable? Do they matter when assessing the educational impact of the teacher asking this question? I'm sympathetic to the policy committee having to navigate between 2 strongly opposed and intensely held views. But I think a uniform policy needs to be made and communicated to school personnel and to parents. It should not be left to individual principals, teachers, and counselors with the parents unaware. So I draw a significant distinction between the school maintaining confidentiality when a student initiates communication related to preferred pronouns and school personnel initiating this communication without regard to how the parents may feel about that. The state board stipulates that no school personnel may inquire about a student's medical status unless directed by the student or in case of an emergency. Why then can they inquire on a student's preferred pronoun usage? My hope here is that in collaboration with the superintendent, that you members of the policy committee, along with the board, will form a district policy regarding whether any school personnel are allowed to initiate communication related to preferred pronouns or any aspect of TGE, and that this policy will be openly communicated to all school personnel and to all parents. That's being open and transparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that was the floor to our public. Next up are the acknowledgement section from the Board of Education. So Julie, you were going to help with this?
I get the fun part tonight. So there's really a lot of exciting things going on around our district, and we've had some information shared with us. I actually probably heard about all these things, so the buzz is out there and it's all positive. OHS partnered up with Oswego Health to celebrate World Kindness Day. Looks like it was a lot of fun out front at the entrance for school with music, food, excitement, happy faces, and it sounded like it was very well received by the students. Kingsford Park celebrated their citizenship awards. Oh, there's video? Okay, no? We're good? Oh, you can play it? Yeah, I didn't know there was a video. Go. Really great. Shout out to Oswego Health for that. Looked like a great day. Kingsford celebrated their citizenship awards. There's some really fun pictures of 6th grade teacher Mrs. Frost getting a pie in the face. If anyone's familiar with their program, every holiday season, they do a collection of socks and personal care products. They collected for this particular fundraiser, thousands, I believe the number was in the 3,000s, of items that all went back to the KPS community and families in need, or will go back to them this holiday season. So it looks like the kids had a lot of fun with that. Fitzhugh Park, oh, is there a video? Oh, there's a video. I didn't see there's videos. My apologies, go. So the students were super motivated to bring items in, and for every item, they were able to vote for the teacher who they wanted to throw the pie at. So that was extra motivation. Fitzhugh Park, this program continues to impress me. They have their Leader in Me night. Shout out to the staff there, Tim Barbeau, Beth O'Kee, Jake Herrick, Erin Sabatini, and Beth McCroby for leading up a family night. Sounds like it was a great opportunity. They had, I believe, 26 families. Yes, 26 families had come in. They did separate sessions with the kids and the parents. They were able to have a nice meal together, brought them back together again to talk about goals at home. And it just sounded like a great way to facilitate some of the messages and conversations taking place in school to carry those over at home. So great job, Fitzhugh Park. Layton Elementary hosted their annual Veterans Day Assembly. I know this has been going on for a little bit. Ray, I know you attended, so maybe you could just comment, because I heard how wonderful it was, but
I mean, if you've never been before,
I've
you,
not,
you
no.
absolutely have to try to make it. It really is overwhelming. The number of veterans that come out and the way that the students show their incredible appreciation along with the teachers and staff, it was really an incredibly moving morning assembly and something that everyone should have the opportunity to be a part of. So I highly encourage you to come out to Layton at Veterans Day next year for that assembly.
And the Oswego High School participated in the Oswego County Youth Academic League. They finished second place during the November meeting in Pulaski. So a shout out to the advisor, Mrs. Morse. And I would just want to recognize those students that participated: Jack Del Conte, Audrey Donovan, Leah Dickus, Addie Lehman, Maggie O'Leary, Ian McKenzie, Trace Miller, Michael Pastella, congrats, Michael, David Pearson, and Beatrice Ratsley. So great job for those students. Charles E. Riley Elementary had a community gathering. They hosted an assembly with a theme of working together. I did talk to some folks over at Riley, and I wanted to share that they said the kids loved this event and that different grade levels host this program once a month. And in this particular month, the 6th grade partnered with the 1st grade. They did a readers theater with families who were invited in, focusing on community, and it sounded like it was well received by everyone and really exciting stuff. This was really cool. I was just reading about this today, the Minetto Turkey Disguise video conference out in Minetto. And I know that you can read, but basically the Minetto students partnered up with some other schools, one in Long Island and one in East Syracuse, I believe. And they created some really very creative turkey disguises. I think they're on the next slide. And they were able to play or simulate this game, Guess Who, if you're familiar with this game, so with some of these other students. So it sounds like it was a blast. It was creative. It was engaging. So shout out to Minetto. That's pretty great. And they also, equally as creative, Minetto Breakout, EDU. So it sounds like it's very much like an escape room and with a lockbox with lots of challenges, learner-centered experience, allowing the students to work together and utilize some of the knowledge they're learning in the classroom at a deeper level. So great job, Minetto, as well. Some really great things going on. I think that's it. Yep.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, so I'd like to give a round of applause for all the great stuff that's going around. I have to say, this is only the second time we've done this, but this is now my new favorite part of the meeting. As a board, we have a lot of things to do with policy and the business of the district, but as Dr. Kilmer has said many times, students first. And it's really a great thing that our students and teachers and staff are doing across the district, and it's just wonderful to keep seeing this, so I'm really glad that we're doing this. Thank you, Julie, for leading us through this one. Next on the agenda is Board of Education. We have one item, which is the high school travel club trip for 2025. So if I can have a motion for that, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Is there any discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next up is Superintendent's Report. Dr. Kilmer.
Thank you very much. I'm actually going to, if the board is okay with it, I'm actually going to put the school resource officer report first as chief, and these officers have other engagements too, but I'll turn it over to chief. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Kilmer. Thanks for having us. We felt after discussion between Dr. Kilmer and I that it would be good 3 months into this program, after us taking the program back over, to kind of give the board a snapshot and the district a snapshot of what we've been doing as a department. I think you should all have the breakdown. I hope it was sent to everybody, right? Okay, so I'm just going to go through it briefly. I know you've probably already read through it. Calls for service by breakdown. As you can see, the high school is obviously a busy area for us. That's why we have the 2 officers there. The middle school, it's about 22% of our calls, and then all the elementary schools combined are about 40% of the calls that we're dealing with. Now, when I say calls, this is based off of reports that we've done. It's not everyday activity. It's not, you know, the SROs in the cafeterias or the SROs in the gym or helping out with the school buses at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. These are just calls for service, things that we've taken reports on that we've had to do. And that's broken down later in the report. There are 3 cases that we had to refer to family court. One was at the middle school. It was a fight. One student injured another student. Then SRO Krilovich had a criminal mischief here where a student damaged some school property. And there was also a larceny. Someone stole something from somebody else, and all 3 were sent to petition to family court. As you can see at the bottom of the page, department-wide, our CID cases, all CID cases are, this is our criminal investigation division. All juvenile cases are now pushed to, we have an investigator that's in charge of juvenile cases, so they're all pushed to that investigator. And as you can see, 2021, things were still kind of on the coming out of COVID school. There was still some, not as much. The students were still virtual appearances and whatnot. And then in 2022, our cases jumped up. And as you can see in 2023, the year is not done. We're already up to 192 cases. Now, these aren't just school-related cases. These are any cases that are involving juveniles. But the root of it, a lot of stuff does come from school. The SROs are in the school to either interview students, interview parents, help students with any issues they might be having. The analysis portion, I kind of already broke that down for everybody. I think we need to have a significant discussion towards the end of the year when we talk about the program, looking at the elementary schools. SRO Miller is the one that's responds to all the elementary schools. It's kind of spread thin. It's 40% of our calls, so it's almost half of the stuff that we're dealing with on a regular basis. Observations, you know, the SROs are becoming heavily involved in the school, working with students, not just in police or safety-oriented stuff, just being mentors and role models. SRO Brongart was going to volunteer to coach a basketball team. I guess the freshman basketball coach backed out the last minute, and SRO Brongart jumped at the chance of coaching the team and took that over immediately. As a department, anytime that there's been an SRO has been at training or needed a day off, as we stated we would do, we've backfilled those shifts, so there's always been coverage at the schools. SROs will be providing coverage throughout the winter at winter sports. Dr. Kilmer and the AD have discussed what sports they want SROs at. They've graciously decided to assist with that. We've been at open houses, and the SROs are currently assisting with threat assessment planning within the district. A company that we deal with called McLaughlin Group, they will do a threat assessment for us, for the school district. So we're gathering some information for that, and we'll move forward. It's at no cost to our department or the school district. On the back page, you can see how the calls are broken down. You see there's a spike on the right side of the paper that's miscellaneous or transports. Transports are generally mental health transports, or we bring a student home. Sometimes students have left the school. We go out, we pick them back up. Or we're going to check on a student might not have come into school on a certain day. We'll go to the house and check to see if everything's okay, based on what the principal asks of us or somebody from the district staff. So with that said, I'll open the floor to any questions that you guys may have.
I just want to know if you have this data for September and October as well, and do you see any trend in any direction?
No, this is for all 3 months. This is for
all 3 months,
yeah, it's for September
cumulatively.
right through November.
Okay.
No, it's pretty standard stuff.
It's pretty consistent?
Yeah, stuff that we expected we deal with. You know, fights in the lunchroom, or just kid stuff.
But volume is pretty much consistent as well?
Yep.
Okay.
just as you're thinking or looking through, I just want to emphasize the partnership between the district and the city police. It's been incredible. Chief and I, and also Assistant Chief Damon Waters as well, have been in regular communication. If something happens off campus or in the evening, I'm getting a cell phone call or a text message from the chief or assistant chief, or any one of the SROs. They are all incredibly responsive to any staff member, administrator, and or family. So I've been very happy with the work and the partnership up until this point. And really the greatest part about having a program like this are relationships. You know, I said this to Chief over and over, and I've said the policing is really not my biggest concern. It's about how we're establishing relationships, creating that welcoming, affirming environment where students feel connected and feel like they've got people to go to, both inside in school and outside of school. And all of these officers have done really an outstanding job of providing that K-12 up through this point. So I thank you for that partnership.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a
Ben.
question if I could, Phil.
Oh, sure.
Maybe I'm just not reading your charts right, but 2023 would include the 3 months you've been in the schools and would include all of the prior months when it was somebody else in the schools, right?
Right. So this is all, that's all juvenile cases that
Right.
we handle.
So have you seen any difference since you took over the program as far as the number of referrals that are being made? Like, do you feel like having more people in the cafeteria has created the trend we were looking for, which was to go down in incidents? That was obviously a lot of the feedback we were getting in the last academic year,
Right.
especially at the high school.
Yep, we've had positive feedback from school staff, having 2 SROs here, having them walk through the cafeteria regularly in other parts of the school. It's seemed to be very beneficial so far. Ben, did you want to add a couple things about just? Okay, I don't.
No, I just came to watch. Thanks for having me. I'm the roving SRO for the district. I handle most of the calls, as he said. I maybe am spread thin certain days, but I try to be very proactive because it then becomes helpful when I have to be reactive. Some of the proactive stuff I do is that I will try to get to the schools and have individual lunches with some of these kids, some that are at risk. The guidance staff, I work very close with them. We try to find out who would benefit from having lunch with a police officer and realize that I am actually a human being, that I have children. They find that interesting, that I'm not just a police officer, because most of these kids that I'll call at risk typically will see the police in a poor light. They're coming to the house, they're arresting siblings, they're arresting mom, they're arresting dad. They're coming there whenever it's bad. I try to show them what it's like to be when times are good and they can spend some time with me. It was actually helpful this week when I had a 6th grader elope from school. She trashed the vestibule. She was having a terrible day. I had actually had lunch with her prior in the school year, and eventually when I showed up at the school, she was kind of sitting out there by herself, and I sat down and we had a nice conversation, and we picked up the vestibule and eventually moved into the principal's office where she was able to de-escalate and calm down. And she also now knows that when she's having a bad day, she can just ask to talk to me, where she should have known that before, but now she really knows it because I did respond to her. But again, that's some of the proactive stuff that we're doing out there. Another day, I had the Riley School principal with me. We were doing a home visit, and on the way back from the home visit, we recognized the mom and her daughter walking to school. They were probably about 2 miles into their walk. I recognized them from a prior incident. We pulled over and talked to them. They did not want to ride to school. She did not want to go to school, but I actually said, well, what if I give mom a ride home after you get to school? Will you go to school? And she says, yes, I will do that. So they walked the rest of the way to school, and I met mom at school after they got there, and then I drove mom home, and it's the second time I've driven mom home. She doesn't have a car, but she's very involved in her daughter's life, and that's some of the stuff that we do. I have the opportunity to kind of do a little bit more of that since I get to 5 schools and and I'm out in the car a little bit more, roving around. So I would like to do more proactive stuff, but sometimes, it's tough because I'm doing a lot of reactive. But does anyone have questions for me? And I guess I know that to your question, I think we were a little bit heavy September, and it has tapered a little bit in terms of our call volume, I would say, just from my experience.
Great. I just want to say also thank you, because those little experiences that you have with each one of those students has huge impact. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just in closing, I've had a conversation with Dr. Kilmer. Departmentally, we're going to be adding a mental health clinician into our department. That's through Helio Health. We have all the funding secured for that, and we're going to be starting interviews in January. And we've discussed having somebody from the school district involved in those interviews for the clinician we're bringing on. Not that they're not going to be in the school per se, but for the periphery stuff that goes on outside of the school. They will be certified to also help juveniles and give their families and us ideas on services that we can get them hooked up with. So I think it's going to be pretty beneficial for the community and for the school district also. So with that said, any other questions or? Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to move on to just give a really brief overview of our plan to continue our work in strategic planning. As the district, as many of you know, the district engaged in strategic planning during the pandemic. In 2021, there was a collective approach to try to address strategic planning. It was done virtually, and there was a variety of stakeholders involved in that process. And that plan's final year was 2024. And so with my coming on and my conversations with many staff and community, I felt this was an appropriate time for us to revisit and move through this work again. Why do we go through strategic planning? Well, if we aim at nothing, we hit the target every time. And we know what gets measured gets done. And strategic planning helps us to ensure that we know what we're measuring and that we're collectively doing that work together. Again, strategic planning is looking collectively as a full community, not just administratively, not just as teachers, but students and teachers and families and community members, the fullness of the community to, one, establish that philosophy, what it is that we truly believe. When we take what's next, the choices and attitudes as to how we approach making that come to life. And then it's that, are we going to go by default, or are we going to be very intentional about our work? Because strategic planning is about ensuring that we're very intentional collectively so that we can find success collectively. So what are the considerations that we need to think about when we're examining whether or not we should go through a process like strategic planning? You go to the next slide, James. I need to put on my readers. I'm old. One, will this plan improve outcomes for students, relationships in the district, and collaboration with all stakeholders? Yes. We are working with Dr. Jason Andrews, Dr. Kevin McGowan, Dr. Andrews, Superintendent of Schools at Windsor Central School District, down in the Binghamton area. Dr. Kevin McGowan is Superintendent of Schools at Brighton. Actually, he was just named last year the National Superintendent of the Year. And then our facilitators can be Dr. Corey Green, the Owego Appalachian superintendent, and they've been working together with Blueprint to help districts really achieve their goals and move the district forward. And so this process is very, very deliberate. Again, ensuring that we have a quality product that will help improve our students' outcomes, that it's practical, that it's reasonable. It helps us in that process to ensure that what it is that we're trying to lay out, what we can actually accomplish, and that it's not going to be just something put in a binder and put on a shelf. It's really about putting something into action and everyone can see it, because there's some accountability that's built into that as well. It's supportive. Will it be one more project or burdensome? No, it's about trying to bring the fullness of the community together so we are working collectively to move the district forward. It's not about placing work on individuals. And then, of course, efficiency. Can we afford to do it? Is it money well spent? And is there a cost benefit? Yes, yes, and yes. Done well, strategic planning absolutely is an essential part of our work, because that will be our guiding light as we make decisions not only at budget time, but as we're making decisions about curriculum. Every aspect of our work will be driven by our strategic plan. And so the process is, so step one, we will be sending out to the full community a thought exchange. And again, it's about gathering feedback from the full community. And that process will be about a month. We expect that to begin in January and move probably maybe into that first week or so of February. But it's a process where people can engage in it numerous times. It's not a survey. Thought exchange is not a survey, but it's a process to collectively engage in conversation about what's going well, areas for feedback, and then they will, at the conclusion, help to analyze and prioritize that information based on the data that they've received from our community. Meeting one, again, it's about a 2-hour meeting. It's the Board of Education along with the leadership team. And there we'll review, possibly revise the mission, vision, and core values. Again, we're going to build off of the work of the Strategic Planning Committee of 2021 and hope to take that into the future. Meeting two is a longer meeting, a 4 to 5 hour meeting, and it's a large group. Anywhere between 40 to 60 individuals involved. It will be, all these meetings, the first 2 meetings will be in person. It will be, again, the leadership team, the Board of Education, and then a large group of community stakeholders. Again, families, community members, students, staff, all really important. And there, they'll take that work and develop objectives and strategies about what to do about that. And then phase 3 is about a 2 to 3 hour meeting. This one's typically in Zoom, and it's with the leadership team. And that's where we begin the work of actually developing action plans. When we actually see plans of what we're going to do, who's responsible for it, and what's the deadline. And so those are those steps. And then there's also some steps that make sure that there's some accountability. And so, again, if we look at the process plan, the next slide, Jamie, again, that temperature check in January, February 27th is our tentative first date for phase 1. March 18th is the tentative date for that larger stakeholder group meeting. We'll hopefully have that 3rd meeting by the end of March, beginning of April, with the hopes of, by the end of April, formally adopting and informing and distributing our not only strategic plan that's been updated, but also our action plans. And then something that's really important to ensure that this work truly is driving us forward are quarterly updates. And so the board will get quarterly updates on our action plans. And they can be at district level, they can be at building level, but again, it's about developing a system where we're constantly going back and revisiting. And those action plans will actually be adjusted from year to year. We will achieve certain objectives, and then we will come up with new objectives, again, in hopes of trying to ensure that we're constantly moving that work forward. Blueprint will help us to send out communications to our families. And again, I expect that to happen. You can go to the next slide, Jamie. Expect that to happen shortly after the winter recess. And we'll send out as much communication. We want to be pretty regular with it. We want to be cautious to not send it right in the middle of that break where no one's going to pay attention. And we'll send out lots of reminders as well, because in order for this work to truly be beneficial, it needs true engagement. And so we have to encourage people throughout. So again, that first meeting, that nuts and bolts, developing and revising and reviewing the district's mission, vision, and core values. Again, we, as a district, developed mission, vision, and core beliefs back in 2021. This slide just shows our mission. We educate, inspire, and empower all students. Vision, an innovative, high-performing district that graduates every student. And so we will absolutely move on from there. I'm a couple slides ahead of you, Jamie. And then priority areas, we will go back and investigate these priority areas as established and look for areas, do they still speak to the community the way that we expect? Are there ways that we should revise and move forward? Again, once we go through and develop and revise that information, we'll come back to that much larger group, that nuts and bolts. We will review and ask them to weigh in on the mission, vision, and core values. Part of that will also be some reports from all departments across the district so that people understand what work that we have been doing, the areas that we are working on, reviewing priority areas, and then developing objectives for each of those areas and strategies to meet those areas. And then 3, this is when the work begins. It's developing those action plans. Revise the what, who, and decide when. These are a couple of samples of what an action plan might look like. Again, there's the priority area, there's the district goal, the action steps, the person responsible, and the time frame. My hope is that we will have district level action plan, again, by April or May. And then the hope is that shortly thereafter, each building can develop their own action plan so that they are collectively doing that work to promote the goals of the full district as well. And so this really is going to be an ongoing process for all. There was a couple of others. So again, priority areas for this district, and this was actually General Brown was the sample that they gave us. So student experience was a priority area, staff experience was a priority area, and again, district goal, community connections. I've heard that a lot in my first few months, and so, that absolutely spoke to me as well. And again, what is the result? It's supposed to be a collaborative process where we're building capacity. We have a shared mission, vision, and goals that speaks to everyone. It's not just something that you see posted on a poster or you hear about once in a while. We live and breathe it every day. Our students know it, our families know it. Focused, practical, measurable action plans. So we see the progress, we see where we're moving and where we're not. And then, of course, the greatest strength of a strategic plan is it helps us to be unified in purpose and practice. And so we will point to the strategic plan, again, whether we're developing budget, when we're making decisions about staffing, when we're making decisions about everything to do with our children's education, that strategic plan should be driving that work for us. And so I'm really excited to begin that work with this community and, more importantly, with our partners. I think they're going to do an excellent job of helping us move this work forward, and so I'm excited about that. Questions?
When you spoke about sending the information or getting engagement from the community, in our district community, what other angles or what other venues would you use to reach out to different aspects? You mentioned our partners as well, but how else will we reach out to engage?
Well, again, the focus here is in the thought exchange is trying to get people to engage within that. And so we need to communicate that through district means, through building means, through classroom means. Again, the hope is that we can help communicate the value of the work, and so people are then invested and wanting to be a part of that work. The stakeholder group will be very deliberate in selecting and ensuring that we've got a wide variety of members of our community to be a part of that larger collective. But I think something that's going to be really important, and they've done a lot of this work, and so they'll help us with that, is how do we find a way to make sure we're engaging as many people as possible in that thought exchange. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda, we have committee discussions. Are there any committees that have anything to report out today? No? All right. The consent agenda. Here's where we get to speed up a little bit. So I am going to ask for a motion for the consent agenda, items A through L, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. Any discussion on items A through L? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda would be personnel.
Good evening, everyone. On the personnel agenda, item A, we have a support staff recommendation for retirement. Joseph Scharf has worked in the district both in the transportation department and most recently in the facilities department, and he's currently the warehouse coordinator since November 2nd, 1994, and his retirement date is February 10th, 2024. So congratulations to Joe. So item A as presented.
Okay, I have a motion for A, please.
I'll move it.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Discussion?
I'd just like to say thank you for all those years of service. Thank you very much.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
And then the rest, we have some professional staff recommendations, some other support staff recommendations, substitute recommendations, and extra compensatory recommendations. So that's items B through M as presented.
Okay, so can I have a motion for B through M?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, David. Is there discussion on items B through M? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Finance.
Good evening. Presented to you under A is a detailed budget calendar for the development of the 2024 and 2025 budget.
Okay, so if I could have a motion for A, please.
I'll move it.
Thank you, David. And
I'll
a second?
second.
Thank you, Kristen. Any discussion on our budget calendar? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Item B is a budgetary, a request for a budgetary transfer of funds from one contractual expense line to an equipment line in order to make sure that our video cameras are properly networked based on the age of the equipment.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion for B, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Is this the same camera system Michael's been talking about in previous meetings? There's putting some cameras out in the parking lot, and do we know?
It has to do with making sure that the ones that we have in place are equipped to record enough for what we do in the
Okay,
school.
so these are to upgrade the
And then
current
store,
systems.
right.
Great, okay, thank you. All right, so any other questions or comments? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, motion carries.
Item C is a presentation with regards to a proposal from Applied Energy Engineering that they are actually engaging in our pre-approval for our building project related to our energy performance contract. So it's presented to the board for approval.
Great. Can I have a motion for C, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second? Thank you, Kristen. Any discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Item D is a proposal for the lease of a long-term lease of to own of a forklift based on the fact that the one we have now is not operating properly and is obsolete.
Okay, so we can motion for D, please. Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second? Thank you, Sean. Any comments on D? Heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Item E is a contract presented to the board for a speech-language pathologist to do some additional work on behalf of the district.
Okay. So is there a motion for E, please?
I'll move it.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any comments or questions on E? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Item F is a proposal to the board for the establishment of the David A. Stereo Memorial Music Scholarship.
Is there a motion for F, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Is there any comments?
Just to thank the Stereo family for offering a scholarship for our students.
Yes, very much, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Item G is a donor's choice or donor's choose donation to Fitzhugh Park Elementary School, and an amount of $839.96 was presented to the school for the purchase of classroom coat lockers.
Great, thank you. A motion for G, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second? Thank you, Sean. Any comments?
I'd just like to thank all those people involved, because as you look down the list, it's people within the community and without, and everybody else who contributed to that. So it's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Nope,
last,
just a minute.
sorry,
Any other comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
okay, last but not least is a donation from the Oswego Children's Board to Layton School of a donation of $125 to help them in their efforts with regards to their Christmas fund helping families.
Okay, great. Is there a motion for H?
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? Heard none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the student representative, Michael.
Thank you so much. So first thing on the agenda that I have is the student council at the high school is starting up a Santa initiative where to spread some holiday cheer, we're going to be going into elementary schools. And I personally will be dressing up as Santa, and some of the other people in student council will be dressing up as elves, and we'll go into elementary schools, kindergarten classes, and spread some of that holiday cheer next week and the Monday after. At the high school, we're restarting the Buck of the Month award. So this recognizes students who have done great things around OHS and for the OHS community, and Tully's has agreed to sponsor this, and they have also agreed to recognize the teacher who nominates the winner of the award that month. Tomorrow, just for some things that are going around Oswego High School, tomorrow the 10th graders will be visiting city BOCES to explore career and technical education options. On the 8th, there is an OHS band concert at 7:30. On the 15th, there's an orchestra concert at 7:30. And on the 8th, Mrs. Donnabella's class is going to be ringing the Salvation Army bell at Kinney's. The Principals Cabinet, which is run by the administration of OHS, met for the first time to discuss ways to better the school. They worked on developing an action plan to implement some of these ideas. Some ideas were decorating the bathrooms, inspirational posters throughout the school, tentatively planning a mental wellness day for students in the spring, and just a general talk about how we can improve the school and also promote fundraisers for classes and organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Are there items from board members?
I have 3 quick little shout outs I want to do really quick. Little micro wins, Julie. To the buildings and grounds for the light that was put outside this exit out here. It had been down for a long time, and it's there, and it's just a little thing, but it keeps it safe out there, and it helps greatly. I wanted to say thank you to, I watched the ESM volleyball game on WBUC because I couldn't make it. And it was a great game, and the kids did really well. And then I walked away from my computer. I came back later, and the feed was still rolling. And I wanted to give a shout out to all the custodians and all the volunteers who cleaned up afterwards, who rolled the chairs, who do everything else to make that happen. It's the people behind the scenes that help out in a great deal too. So I just wanted to say thank you to them. And then I also wanted to say a shout out because it was the first time I heard on a feed a play-by-play. Jamie, I don't know if we get that all the time or not, but it was exciting. And to those 2 kids who were calling the game, they were very exciting. I know Dr. Kilman said they looked exciting because he was at the game, but they were having a great time, and I just thought that was a wonderful, another level of creativity that was added to it. So I just wanted to give those shout-outs.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Any other items from board members? Okay, so we do have need for an executive session this evening for 2 issues. One is proposed current or pending litigation, and the second is collective bargaining negotiations. So can I have a motion to move to executive, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Second? Thank you, Kristen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. There will not be a need for a vote afterwards. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.